Latest figures on GDP. Bob Brusca is here. He's chief economist at FAO Economics. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to be with you.
So the fourth quarter was a little bit stronger, at least that's the latest estimate of about 1%. Now, I don't know if we should be joyous over that or still concerned.
Well, this is kind of the upward revision that feels like a downward revision.
Yeah.
Because that's one of these things economists talk about. We had an upward revision because there was a lot more inventory building. And so inventory building means that we loaded stuff into the inventories in this quarter, and it means that's less stuff that they're going to load next quarter. So because spending numbers actually got a little bit softer, and consumer spending hasn't been great. I mean, people are talking about a pickup, and they think there's going to be a pickup, and they talk about low gas prices, and they keep talking, and the consumer keeps not spending. So this buildup in inventories could turn out to be a drag.
So going forward then, in this year, when we finally get the first quarter, because we're backward looking here, what are you thinking about in terms of growth for this quarter? What are your numbers?
Well, for the quarter, I think we get a number that's maybe below 2%. I think we're going to be below 2% for the year. So I've got a weaker forecast than TheStreet and the people at the Fed. And I'm really concerned about the economy. I'm concerned about the global slowdown. I'm concerned about the fact that the manufacturing ISM, for example, has been below 50 for 4 months running. That means manufacturing is contracting in that lexicon. And that the services reading actually was quite weak too. The services reading for the non-manufacturing ISM is weaker only 38% of the time last month. So we're looking for these new readings this next month to see really if that kind of weakness continues.
So I would assume then you think if the Fed is going to keep raising rates, that might be a mistake if the economy is not growing the way the Fed hopes or other people hope?
Well, my concern is that the Fed will keep raising rates and that it will turn out to be a mistake because the Fed is really focused on something else. Jim Bullard gave a speech at the Money Marketeers this week, a very interesting speech. You can find it online at the St. Louis Fed website. And Jim's stuff is really easy to read. He does PowerPoint stuff. And he talks about the mistakes that the Fed is making and why he thinks that they're looking at the wrong thing. And you know, I've got a blog online where I talk about this too, and I've been evaluating economic statistics. And you know, every kind of statistic you can measure has been weak, except the job and employment stuff that the Fed looked at. That's been strong. And so by looking at that, the Fed is getting a very, very skewed view of the world.
Do you think that a recession risk is maybe not this year, but increasing for next year, possibly, if we have growth of 1.5% this year?
Well, I think that there's a palpable recession risk, and I wouldn't put it out of the question for this year because, you know, when that happens, things suddenly unravel. You know, you might remember the last recession. People thought that things were fine, and nobody really saw it coming. And sure, there was a problem here, and there was a problem there, but then all of a sudden, the bottom just falls out. That's you know, it's like some stupid vaudeville thing where 1 minute the guy's standing there and the next minute the track door opens up and he's gone, you know.
And even if you look through some of these corporate earnings reports we've had, I mean, there's not a ton of stuff to be encouraged in some of these companies' statements about what they're doing in their own firms. There have been layoffs announced. Certainly energy is still a problem, and there's ripple effects from that potentially.
Yeah, well, corporations, I think, are still struggling. You know, we're all living in the same environment, and the global environment is very weak. Global manufacturing is weak. The global services sectors have been slowing down. And so in an environment like that, it's very hard to keep your profit numbers up. And so far, firms have been, at least in the US, they've been able to, for the most part, not lay people off, right? The weekly jobless claims numbers are still very low. The quit rate has actually edged up a little bit, but I'm really concerned about the labor market. Of course, the Fed's looking at that. Once the labor market has a reaction, then the Fed will stop. But as long as the labor market continues to whistle past the graveyard, the Fed is likely to continue on this path.
It's a really interesting time in the economy. Bob Brusca, thanks so much. Great to see you.
Thank you.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler for TheStreet.